As members of the Global Farmer Network,
we believe agriculture is part of the solution,
not part of the problem.
We are committed to developing agricultural leaders
and sharing their stories across the globe.
We have one purpose:
to amplify the farmer's voice.
My voice.
Mi voz.
La mia voce.
My voice.
Welcome to Global Farmer Voices, a podcast by the Global Farmer Network where we invite farmers from around the world to share their stories and perspectives. Today, the Global Farmer Network is proud to announce the expansion of its roles and leadership efforts into Africa, underscoring the organization's commitment to amplifying the voices of farmers, promoting free trade and technology, sustainable farming practices, economic growth, and ensuring food security. As part of the Global Farmer Network's expansion into Africa, it's adding 2 regional lead positions, both in Nigeria and Zimbabwe. Patience Koku, a Nigerian farmer and longtime Global Farmer Network member, as well as Ruramiso Mashumba, who was a farmer in Zimbabwe, will be joining the Global Farmer Network staff to continue expanding efforts into Africa and beyond. Although Ruramiso and Patience are now both farmers in Africa, neither of them come from farming backgrounds. Ruramiso grew up in the capital city of Zimbabwe, Harare, where her father worked in telecommunications and her mother was a nurse. When she was a teenager, her dad decided to buy a farm. She moved to a more rural area and started at a new school that was very agriculture-focused. Because she'd only been exposed to small subsistence farms, she was very excited to learn more about commercial farming.
So that was my first introduction to agriculture. We used to have little gardens where we were growing vegetables, onions, and I really enjoyed it because I feel like I've always been a person who likes to reflect, sit in the garden, look at nature. So it really could resonate with farming, although I'd never known it at a commercial level. And then further on, when I was 17 at the same school, I got an opportunity to do a diploma in agriculture. I was one of the few girls. 90% of our class was boys, and it was super tough. They didn't make it very feminine. We had to wear the boys' uniform. I don't know why. After now, I wonder why. We had to wear like khakis. And then it was tough. It was very practical. So you learned how to keep chickens, clean the layers in the way the laying birds are kept. We had to clean the piggery. So it was like very dirty and tough and but then still, I still enjoyed it. It was hard for me because the boys used to bully me a lot, maybe because I was quiet, but I pulled through and I got distinctions and passed, and then got an opportunity to go to the UK and further my education to do a bachelor's degree in agriculture.
Patience initially began her education and career in a totally different field. She studied political science and spent most of her adult life as an entrepreneur in the fashion industry. But of all Patience's endeavors, being a farmer is at the top of her list in terms of both difficulty and fulfillment.
So I tell people that it was divine, I guess, because if I knew what I was getting into, I would never have ventured, because farming is by far the most difficult thing I've done in my life, but the most rewarding. And so we were basically looking for a new business. So we thought, well, there's, it seems like there's an opportunity in farming. So we thought we were going to get like really rich real quick with farming, thinking it was a 1 + 1 = 2, but we found out very quickly that that wasn't the case. So, but here I am many years on, still stuck, caught by the farming bug, and still pushing.
In a male-dominated industry like agriculture, Ruramiso is proud to be a model for other women choosing to start a farming career.
Agriculture is very male-dominated in Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, a lot of part of Africa. There are very few women who participate in agriculture, at least at levels of ownership, levels of speaking for policy. Most of the people who are owning farms, doing big projects are men. So it was it was a true reflection of the country. And I remember when I finished my degree and I went back to farm, even conversations I would have with other farm managers, they would say, isn't this too difficult for a woman? People used to always question the fact my ability was based on my gender because I'm a woman. So this is not a place for women. But what I'm excited about now that I look back, it's been 10 years, and I reflect and I see how so many women are coming up in agriculture, how I've been able to be the voice for many that have come and that will come to see agriculture as an attractive opportunity, and to also listen to the voices is through platforms like Global Farmer Network, where they elevate the voice. Because many times the voices are silent in these rural areas. No one knows what people are going through. There are also some battles that women face, which probably are more different from men, because, for example, you can be targeted, there's robberies, so many bad things can happen to women. So there's so many things. So it's important for women voices to be heard in agriculture, and also for people to understand, because Zimbabwe is 70% of women on working at primary level, packing and doing all the menial jobs, or at least the primary jobs, but are not really getting the skills to then become the owners or even the confidence. But I'm excited when I see so many women now, even in the very communal with no education, seeing me as their role model and deciding to scale up their skills and become owners and speak at platforms, speak at policy levels.
In Zimbabwe, as Ruramiso mentioned, there are both communal and commercial farms, which are quite different from one another.
So the difference is communal farming is on small pieces of land. Mainly the areas are different. So there are areas called communal areas. These communal areas are not as fertile. So most of the indigenous people in Zimbabwe have a home. I have a communal homestead. I think everyone who's born in Zimbabwe has a communal homestead. So these are the areas where our great-grandparents live and they farm. They've been farming for years and years. They mainly grow maize, so it's subsistence farming, and they don't really have like a proper job which gives them an income. The only income they get is from selling of those crops. So those are what we base as communal farming. There's lots of other definitions that you can find that talk of that type of setup. And they live like there's some round huts, they cook with firewood, they keep small livestock there as well. So that's communal farming. That's majority of farming in Zimbabwe. Then there's commercial farming. Commercial farming is as long as now you're farming to sell. It becomes commercial. So it can still be in a small scale, but as long as now you're selling, you now have access to money and you can purchase equipment, or you can hire, or you can lease out, it becomes more commercial. So it's more the ability to sell. So when you have the business skills, the business acumen that is required for you to understand the agronomy, for you to understand marketing, for you to understand some basics, then you become more commercial. So, but we have also big commercial farmers who have sophisticated equipment, and some smaller commercial farmers who lease out equipment.
Based on statistics from Zimbabwe Extension offices, the majority of farms in the country, approximately 70 to 80%, are communal farms, with farmers aiming mainly to feed themselves and their families from the harvests. This means that only about 20 to 30% of all farms fall in the commercial category. The system of communal and commercial farming isn't unique to Zimbabwe. According to Ruramiso, other countries in Africa, such as Malawi, Zambia, and Rwanda, also follow this structure. In Nigeria, 85 to 90% of farmers are smallholder farmers. Only in recent years have more people moved to commercial models of farming, simply because it's so difficult to profit from a commercial farm. Because of challenges with access to equipment, seeds, and technology, it's not as easy to grow food efficiently and profitably.
One thing I found out very quickly when we started farming was that agriculture in Nigeria and in many parts of Africa was still very far behind the rest of the world in terms of access to technology, what mechanization, basic tools that farmers use. And so here we grow a lot of basic cereals, like staples would be rice, corn, soybeans, cowpea, and then of course a lot of yams and cassava and those kind of things. But then one of the challenges we have here is that the farm holdings are very small. So, people own like a quarter of a hectare. And so it's essentially just farmers who are, using labor from their own families, doing just the amount of land that they can physically handle. because they would do everything, plow with a what we call a hoe. There's a particular hoe for making ridges, and then plant with the family labor. So basically, farmers here are limited to the labor resources within their own families. And that's really just because they don't have access to mechanization, or to the equipment that they would have otherwise been able to use to grow larger fields. And that's a big challenge.
Global Farmer Network members are chosen through nominations and are often nominated by fellow Global Farmer Network members. Ruramiso and Patient's stories are no different. Ruramiso has spent years sharing her farming journey, challenges, and more on social media. When a fellow GFN member from Zimbabwe took notice and reached out to Ruramiso on Facebook to see if she would be interested in applying, she was a little unsure at first she was qualified. Both being at the start of her farming journey and a smaller farmer, she reluctantly agreed. After being nominated and eventually selected to join the Global Farmer Network, she quickly made new connections and found ways to incorporate what she had learned from other farmers in the organization into her farming efforts in Zimbabwe.
You see, I'm a member of different organizations in Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, mainly in Africa. And most of our conversations are very similar. So we have similar challenges, and we are sometimes stuck. We don't understand or know what we should do to move forward. But when you meet, and most of the times also because we're first generation farmers, a lot of us, or we're coming from communal backgrounds where we don't understand commercial farming. And then when you go to a platform like the Global Farmer Network, you get to meet farmers who have had six generation farming. So they maybe their first and second went through experiences that we are going through. And then you also get to understand and learn from more experienced farmers who have access to technology. When I joined the Global Farmer Network, I was looking at putting in center pivot irrigation. And when I connected with Kim, she also then introduced me to Valley and all the way back to Valley, Zimbabwe. So it's through those connections where you start to talk to various stakeholders, even stakeholders we're talking to today might not be present in Zimbabwe yet or in lots of parts of Africa, but have interest, but just don't know how. So it's about creating that leverage and being able to share information that you cannot find elsewhere.
Patience was also nominated by a Global Farmer Network connection during a communication training in Nigeria.
Okay, so I was nominated to the Global Farmer Network by Sarah, who was the executive director of the Alliance for Science, who I had bumped into in Nigeria when they were doing some communication training on GMO technology. And so I ran into them, and of course, I was always searching for the right tools, to farm in Nigeria. And I was very keen to know more about the technology, and why it wasn't available here. And I immediately began to look for ways to speak up towards, getting it here. And that's how I got nominated to the GFN.
Given both Patience and Ruramiso's backgrounds with the Global Farmer Network, they've seen many changes for the organization and now will be starting a new transition of their own, taking on roles as regional leads. These roles will require them to engage stakeholders in Africa, and they certainly have a head start.
So in terms of engaging, I'm already working with stakeholders in Africa. I attend a lot of conferences. I speak at a lot of platforms. I'm part of many organizations. So I think something that I see as an opportunity is the Global Farmer Network is an opportunity to consolidate a lot of those different networks and being able to create a place where we can all discuss the pertinent issues in Zimbabwe, in Africa, in Nigeria, in Angola. So I think that is something that I see myself playing an active role in creating that support for farmers, various places to be able to have their voices heard. Like I mentioned earlier, many times we have people who speak for us, but having the opportunity to create a place where farmers' voices are heard and farmers speak for themselves, being able to leverage knowledge and transfer it also to our stakeholders, because some of the challenges we haven't solved today is because there is just a disconnect from the farmers and the value chain and the stakeholders and the policymakers. we really need to have strong voices that speak into that. We really need to have a way of consolidating all the stuff we're doing, various conferences we're speaking at. How do we actually consolidate all that and create a strong global farmer network in Africa? And being able to also leverage on experiences from other continents as well, and bringing that knowledge, because we always talk. When I went last year to Rwanda to create a manifesto for the young farmers in Africa, we always talk about the importance of knowledge transfer, but how does it happen when we don't know who else can then transfer that knowledge to us? So having platforms like Global Farmer Network is a great opportunity to create those synergies and that transfer and those support to support each other, because at the end of the day, we're all wanting to produce food to feed the continent and the world as well. So we're all living on one earth. So we need to support each other.
Having been a member of the GFN for many years, I've realized the tremendous value that the GFN holds in terms of knowledge, right? So I'm not sure that there's any one place in the world where we hold such a diverse knowledge bank. And so for me, living and working in a continent that is so far behind, I see that there is so much value that the GFN can bring in terms of knowledge. And peer-to-peer learning is so vital, right? Because the person has been there and you're basically walking a road that people have walked. And so getting you to take the right path is easier when the person who is leading you has been there. And so I see that there's this opportunity for the GFN to make tremendous impact. And not because there haven't been people who have tried to make impact, but because you can do more when you are a real and actual farmer. And so you find that whenever farmers drive change by themselves, they are more likely to succeed, right? Than someone who thinks that they know what farmers need, driving that change. And I think that that has just always been the missing link for us. And so I see that as the regional lead for the GFN in Africa, I can be that bridge, that will cause the GFN to be able to seamlessly work in Africa and immediately begin to bring, very, very obvious and tangible change.
As Ruramiso and Patience move forward as regional leads, they both have specific issues and topics in mind to target with stakeholders and farmers in Africa, namely marketing and production.
So we're focusing on access to market this year because marketing is something that we haven't figured out, especially horticulture marketing. You'll find that many farmers are losing produce every year because they don't know where to sell it, yet there are areas that need the food and then have to import from other continents, yet we can feed ourselves. We have policies that are in place that have been put in place for us to trade. People are not trading. So we need to start important conversations as farmers. It's good that this is a platform for farmers, as farmers, to see what is the missing link here and what can we do to move forward. At the same time, it's not just only conversations amongst farmers, but we also have stakeholders as well as people who are interested in supporting these initiatives coming together with us and creating concrete ideas and solutions and being a platform where we are action-based. We're not just discussing, you go to so many conferences, you sit there and you discuss and it stops there. But the Global Farmer Network will be action-based. So we'll be able to then say, okay, this came out. What are our action steps? How we move forward? We're going to reach out to. Next time when we report, we have concrete solutions and things that we've already started doing, some things that we've already started moving. And I believe that, that's how we start. We one step at a time.
Maybe because I am such a production fan, my main focus would be just basically working through the value chain, but starting at production, right? Because where we end up at the end of the day is determined by what we are able to produce. And I'll give you an example. Farmers in Nigeria still grow corn and get yields of like 2 tons per hectare. Whereas in many countries, we're talking 10 and upwards tons per hectare. And so it's just the fact that the knowledge isn't there, and many times if you don't know what you need, it's difficult, because if you do have that knowledge, that if I farm this way, if I did no-till, or if I use the right seeds, or, just all of those kind of things would definitely make the farmer more productive. And so I think that focusing on the entire value chain, but primarily with production, which is where most of us farmers are, we could quickly increase the amount of food that's grown on the continent, and immediately we'll be tackling food security and world hunger issues.
It's clear that both women are excited about the future of Africa and the continent's potential impact on the world of agriculture.
So what excites me is the opportunity that is there that has not been tapped, that is dying to be unlocked. So it really excites me because I can see it. It's really in the near future. I really can see, because, there's so many young people. When we look at the statistics, the amount of young people going into agriculture is increasing. People are becoming interested. You find people who have studied medicine, people who are in law, various careers, looking at agriculture as a great potential, which was unlike some time ago. Agriculture was looked upon as a career for people who have nothing else to do, or who are not excelling in school, but it's now seen, it's very prestigious. And this is through storytelling, through sharing, people meeting the farmers and understanding the potential it has. And we look at Africa, the population is going to increase. We have the youngest population, in the world. Africa holds the youngest people. So there is so much, and there's a lot, young people are now embracing technology. So unlike long time ago when it was a struggle to share information, but now we have access to tools, and these tools, scaling them up. And there's lots of young people who are, every day I'm meeting new people who are developing different solutions using ICT. So I think definitely there's so much that's going to come out of Africa, and the future is really going to be very bright.
Oh, Africa has tremendous impact. And I say this to everyone that cares to listen, right? That Africa is the next frontier, and not only because of our population, but because of the fact that we have such a youthful population, which is a plus and a benefit. And we're a huge market, both for ourselves and for other people, right? And so just getting Africa on the right track is beneficial to everybody. Africa is, imagine how many billion people would be in 2050. In Nigeria, currently, we're over 200 million, and we're growing very fast. And so I think that Africa, for ourselves and for everyone else, holds so much opportunity to do a lot, whether in terms of making impact and bringing change, whether it's in terms of trade, or whatever focus it is, where I think that we are the next frontier. And so watch out for Africa.
Two incredible women who are making an immense impact both in their home countries in Africa and with every connection they make across the globe. We can't wait to see what's in store for them next. If you're interested in learning more about the Global Farmer Network's mission and its members, seeing some of the things the organization is up to, and finding out how you can get involved, please visit globalfarmernetwork.org. And if you'd like to support the Global Farmer Network through a donation, you can do so at globalfarmernetwork.org/donate. If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, please be sure to subscribe and follow the Global Farmer Network on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next time, I'm Delaney Howell, and this has been the Global Farmer Voices podcast.